And there's something else we can learn from Brazil's experience with ultra processed foods, and that is how far the makers of ultra processed foods are willing to go in order to ensure that their products spread to the most remote corners of the globe. Let's imagine that you're in the marketing department of a massive food company and you're presented with this problem. Now, let's add some corporate spin on it. You have a challenge and an opportunity. The opportunity is that there is a largely untapped market for your ultra processed foods in Brazil. And that's good news because consumers in the developed world, the United States, Canada, the UK, they've started to question the health they've started to question the health implications of ultra processed foods. Paleo, Mediterranean diets, the whole food, plant-based, carnivore, all a shift away from ultra processed foods. But Brazil is a new, potentially massive market. But there's a challenge. In many places in Brazil, there aren't supermarkets in the sense that we think of them in the United States. Distribution channels are in their infancy, especially in places like, say, the Amazon River. How will the 800,000 potential consumers of the Amazon River ever get to experience the ultra processed foods, which have now become so common in the rest of the world? And if you can't bring people to the supermarket for your product, you bring the supermarket to the people. And that's exactly what Nestle did. Van Toliken describes this as a, quote, spectacular marketing effort announced by Nestle in 2010, which involved the acquisition and conversion of a massive barge into a floating, traveling supermarket to cover the hundreds of miles of the Amazon River, stopping at towns all along the way, fully stocked with all of the ultra processed foods that had yet to reach the 800,000 people living in the region. And as perhaps could be anticipated, the floating supermarket was a big hit among the people of the Amazon River. It was novel, it was exciting, and gave them access to foods that were new, tasty, convenient, and relatively cheap. People got to taste chips, soda, Kit Kats for the very first time. And predictably, people began to make the switch. Not because they lacked willpower, not because they were bad people. They made the switch for the same reasons that everyone else did: convenience, taste, cost, and novelty. Not only that, the experience of the floating supermarket was undeniably cool. It became a hangout spot, an experience that people will look forward to. The 11 staff members who operated the vessel look back on the experience with some understandable pride, something we can all relate to. Let's forget food for just a second and think about the novelty and the incredible benefits provided by smartphones and social media. Instant global communication, GPS, incredible photo and video. This is all before AI. I mean, smartphones and social media are amazing, but at the same time, it's undeniable that these technologies have fundamentally altered human interaction, attention spans, and mental health. Certainly not all for the better. Most of us even know that, yet we have a very hard time imagining going back to a world without smartphones and social media. Are ultra processed foods really that different? And from a health perspective, according to Van Toliken, in Brazil, the results have been predictably devastating. Obesity and diet related diseases that are all too familiar in the West began to emerge in Brazil for the first time. He says, quote, I have not found any evidence that there were children with diet related diabetes in these parts of Brazil until enterprises like the Nestle boat, end quote. Now, to be fair to Nestle, the floating supermarket did stock more than sweets, sodas, and junk food. Okay, they provided fresh fruits, vegetables, along with healthier snack options. But what they stocked and what people picked, sometimes that's a different thing. We know from Van Toliken that mostly what people favored was Kit Kats. But this also brings up another issue that should be highlighted: that ultra processed foods have a way of crowding out local producers and local foods. The products on the Nestle boat were cheaper than the local market, so people started to buy more of their food from the boat. Understandable. Most of us would do the same. And as consumers developed taste for these ultra processed foods, they began to demand them. In a way, they became the willing marketing arm for Nestle. Van Toliken says, quote, I went to a small supermarket which had a huge quantities of traditional foods: rice, beans, yams, papayas, tomatoes, onions, but an array of ultra processed foods too. The shopkeeper said that he hadn't heard of Nestle products until the boat came. Now he feels obliged to stock the products because consumers began to demand them. End quote. And once that happened, Nestle no longer needed to keep operating the floating supermarket, so they shut it down.